for the third time. I just want to do a short introduction because I learned today in Tabea's workshop you should start with your own story and relate to everybody else. So hi, my name is Migan, I'm co-founder of Teach Surfing. I'm born in Iran, Armenian, my parents live in Armenia, and I traveled once in a year at least to Armenia, and I always wanted to give back to the community, not with money or donation, but with my knowledge. What I learned, what I worked, my profession as a software engineer, as a product owner in Europe. So I always find a way to find the people who are in need of my skills. I give business development workshops for non-profit organizations. I gave IT career workshop for students in a school, especially my passion is to motivate the young women in the IT career, so that always makes me happy when I see a classroom full of girls. And this is how, when doing this, me and my co-founder Greta, we realized there is no simple and direct way that can enable people like us to transfer their knowledge to the target community that they're motivated to share. And this is how Teach Surfing project started. And we very fast realized we are not the only persons who want to give back to communities with knowledge. On the first time being on stage in One Young World Conference, we already had 300 people from different global community joining the movement. And this motivated us to grow it to a global platform for knowledge sharing. So with Teach Surfing, you can say what are the skills you want to share. And as an organization, you say what are the skills you need. And this around 140 countries around the world. So not only locally, but also when you're traveling. So, my learning, Tabea, that was coming to you, and what does it have to do with you? We believe that every single one in this room has a valuable knowledge to share. And we want to make sure that you have no excuse not to sharing it. That's why we are here, that's why we have the platform, that's why we have educational programs, how you pack your knowledge in a workshop format. That's why we are interested in the future of education. How we can, as a community of knowledge sharing people, can help the education system for filling the gaps of knowledge that there is in this rigid educational system. And this is how we were interested to contact Manuel, and who is founder of 2 universities. The second one, the university, the Code University of Applied Science, which is not just another university. It's a very modern thinking university, working with more project-based but also curiosity learning methods. And this is why we are interested in new ways of learning, and that's why we are happy that Manu will talk about what are you? Unlocking the true potential of knowledge sharing. So this is why we have Manu. And after Manu's presentation, we are going to have a panel discussion. The panel discussion will be about young migrants and refugees struggle with underskilled employment in Europe. How can we counter with education? So why this talk? Because we have a lot of educational programs financed by EU to support young migrants and refugees to take the stage and offer their knowledge and culture to the local communities. So this is why we are interested to interact and discuss these topics. And afterwards, just to make sure that you're not bored and sleeping on the panel discussion, during the panel discussion, we have Jamila with us, who is an entrepreneur, author, and I would like to say education activist, who is going to talk about how every one of us can become agents of change in education. So once you're already, again, you have your motivation high, we want to celebrate afterwards with food and drinks, and with our DJ Papa Hase coming extra from Berlin. So stay for the party afterwards. So, by finishing this part, I would like to welcome Manuel on the stage.
Thank you for this lovely introduction. Hi everyone. I'm Manuel, as you already heard. I'm for short Manu. Co-founder of, actually 2 universities. And I also want to share, not actually knowledge with you today, but my story and what got me into founding universities, and also my thoughts on how we have to rethink education beyond sharing information. That's why I chose this title. And it's very much work in progress in my head, so it might not be the perfect keynote presentation. I didn't bring any slides because I really want to talk to you and I want you to listen to me. But that's also why I don't have any notes in front of me, because that's usually why you have slides, so you don't lose track of what you're trying to say. So forgive me when I sometimes peek at my phone to not lose track of what I was trying to say. So why did I found a university? I just follow your example and talk a bit about myself and how it relates to all of you and why I'm here. Not because we need more universities. We have plenty of universities in Germany, more than 400 actually. And these 400 universities offer more than 2,000 different study programs. So there's quite a variety in there. But if you look beyond the content, you realize there's actually not a lot of variety, because the structure is always the same. There's certain content that you need to learn by heart, memorize, and then there's going to be a standardized test where you can prove whether or not you've learned the content. And then you get a certificate, and then you're prepared for the rest of your life. Or so they claim. And we saw on multiple occasions that this just didn't seem to work. It started with my own university, where the university that I studied at came into existence because a couple of doctors came together and said, that was back in the early 80s, they said, you know, we put a lot of effort into educating doctors, medical doctors. And all we do is we cram knowledge into their heads. And after 5 or 6 years of study, they encounter a patient for the first time and they're overwhelmed because these patients have emotions and they're hurting and they're irrational, and you have to explain to them that they may be dying in a few weeks, and you don't even know how to take blood pressure because you've never actually physically worked with a patient. So they said, we need to reinvent how we teach our doctors, our medical doctors. And they said, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other people have actually invented a program for that. It's called problem-based learning. So they implemented that in Germany as the first university for medical studies. And that's how the university came into existence. I ended up not studying medicine because I figured I can't really stand the environment of a hospital. So I chose economics for lack of alternatives. Then switched to philosophy and cultural sciences when it was offered, and spent a lot of time with sociologists and psychologists and everyone who I thought was interesting. And all the time I was thinking about how powerful it is when you take a step back from the content you're trying to teach and think about the formats you're using and the learning environment you're designing. And that will basically get me into thinking about education, and challenged me to come up with my own learning concepts and designing learning environments. Of course, this is me looking back and making sense of all the irrational decisions I've made throughout the years, but looking back, it seems to make sense somehow. So I ended up founding Code University, and we have this distinct idea that it should be a university centered around learning, not around teaching. So it's not the professors who are the most important people in the room, but the students. And if you're actually looking at learning as a phenomenon, then you realize that what the professors provide in terms of input is, of course, an important part, but it's only a part. And if you try to design everything around the learning experience, your professors need to change their role and their understanding. And you need to change your assessment formats, and you need to really change how you approach your students and how you integrate your students and how you design the whole learning environment. And we started doing this in 2017, took in the first 88 students. Now we've grown to more than 600 students from 80 different countries. It's become an international community. And doing that over the years, we saw something very interesting, that our focus actually shifted away from the content that we were providing with our learning resources and our professors. And we started more and more thinking about the mindset, the perspective on the world that our students gained or developed. Because we saw a lot of students growing their confidence in their own abilities to do something, to change something. Every project that our students are working on in this project-based learning approach is a challenge for the students. They're facing this challenge, they're taking on meaningful problems, they're trying to come up with solutions, they fail productively, they reinvent themselves, they start learning new things, they follow their curiosity. All of that is not necessarily about the content and about the knowledge, but there's something more happening, and that's what got me really interested in what is it that we're actually trying to do when we learn, and what can we observe? What do we actually mean when we say someone learns something in a successful way? What's the goal of learning? And for me, it's something that goes beyond just sharing knowledge. There's something much more powerful happening, and that's what I want to talk to you about. And I want to start with a story that I like very much, and it's the story of two fish that swim in the ocean. Some of you may know it. And these two fish swim along, and they encounter an older fish who passes by, and this older fish nods to the young fish and says, "Howdy boys, how's the water?" And the younger fish nod back and swim along, and then all of a sudden one of the fish turns to the other and says, "What the hell is water?" And this is from a commencement speech from David Foster Wallace, an American author, who gave this to share with the students that he was talking to the idea that how he calls the real purpose of a real education is something different than just knowledge. It is the way it changes your perspective on the world, and it introduces you to the idea that you have a choice when it comes to interpreting what's happening with you in this world. He calls this kind of making sense of reality, or taking purpose, creating purpose or meaning from experience. So we're all experiencing a lot of things every day, and usually the way we interpret these things and how we create meaning from them is something that happens by default, because there's a lot of inner beliefs that we have carry around with us that make these decisions for us. So, I don't know, if something bad happens to us, some people tend to say, "Oh, okay, that's just bad luck, today is not my day." Other people say, "Oh, the universe is trying to tell me something." Or we all have these kinds of things that happen automatically within ourselves. We don't even reflect on them. And most of the time we don't realize that we actually have a choice when these things happen. And that's what he was trying to say, is that this is the real value of a real education, to create this awareness that we all have the power to redefine this, our relationship with the world and with the things that are happening to us in the world. And he compares this to the fish swimming in water who are not even aware of this very important thing that surrounds them and influences them, of course. And this, for me, is very closely related to what you could call mindset, basically, because it's not only your perspective on the world, but it's also your perspective on yourself, how you see yourself, how you think of yourself as, I don't know, someone who's capable of doing certain things and not capable of other things. People say, you know, I'm bad at math, or I'm bad at dancing, apparently, or I'm good at this and I'm good at that. And you may have heard of the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, who was basically the inventor of the growth mindset. And she describes a similar thing, that she went to kindergarten or primary school, and she was observing students, young students, kids, how they dealt with challenges. And she created this kind of setup experiment where she gave a group of young kids a puzzle. And they were just solving the puzzle, and after that, she asked them, "Hey, do you want another puzzle that's basically as complicated as the one you just solved? Or do you want a more complicated one with more pieces?" And from her perspective, she saw clearly that you could divide these young kids into two groups. One group that says, "Hey, that's what I know I can do, so I'm taking the same one because I'm sure I can do this." And there were other kids who said, "Why should I do the same one? I already did this, so I want the next level, the next challenge." And she called the one perspective the fixed mindset and the other the growth mindset. And it's this, I think, the same idea. It's your perspective on yourself. Do you see yourself as someone who's kind of turning away from challenges because for you it's a threat of failure. You could fail, which means you're a bad person, you're a failure. Is it that you're trying to stick to the things you know you're good at? Do you have these belief sentences in you that say, I am X, I am this, and I am that? Or are you the other perspective on yourself? Are you someone who sees a challenge and says, okay, a chance to prove myself? Maybe a chance to fail productively and a chance to grow in this kind of experience of failure. Do you identify yourself with your failures, or do you see failures as something that is not you, but for you a challenge and a chance to grow? And reading all these books and listening to all these people and observing our own students, I was asking myself, how can you design a learning environment that not only teaches people certain knowledge and content, but helps them develop a certain mindset, a certain perspective on the world, creating this awareness that they have a choice how they see themselves. And I read a book from a French neuroscientist, Stanislas Dehaene, and he describes learning as basically an inner model of the world that we all have. And every experience we have is challenging this inner model. And either it's confirming it because what I expected based on my inner model of the world is what's happening, and so I'm confirming my inner model, but I'm not learning. Or it's challenging my inner model and I have to adapt it, which he calls learning. And this inner model of the world not only includes the outer world, but of course also myself. So the question is, how can you create learning experiences that challenge the inner model of ourselves, to change that, to develop that into a different way we can see ourselves as someone who's able to grow, who's able to learn new things, who's able to take on bigger and meaningful challenges. And relating to you all and to us all who think about education, who want to share our knowledge and our experience with other people, I think it's worth thinking about every learning experience that we create, every learning environment that we design, as an environment that's not only there to pass knowledge on to other people and help them learn certain things about the world, but it's always also an opportunity to help them create a different mindset or develop their own mindset, their idea about themselves that maybe helps them see the world differently, but also see themselves differently. And I think ultimately for all of us, we want ourselves and everyone to have a growth mindset, to have a mindset that is full of confidence that we have what it takes to take on meaningful problems, to create new solutions, to come up with creative ideas. And there's studies over studies showing that for academic success or success in life, in professional life and career, it's not a matter of how much you know, but it's a matter of how confident you are in your own abilities to do something meaningful, to learn something. So if you look at students and you can predict the outcome of assessments, not by how much they are learning, but by how confident they are in their ability to learn the things they're supposed to learn. And that's a different perspective on learning and creating learning experiences that I wanted to share with you. For us at Code University, it means we are relying very much on project-based learning because projects are challenging our students to take on a meaningful problem that they can choose. So they're choosing something they're interested in, or they're somehow related to, or they have an urge to solve. They're challenged to really understand the problem, create meaningful solutions for it, learning on the way because they realize that there's a lot they need to know to actually come up with a good solution for the problem. And in the end, experience something like self-efficacy, self-determination, because they get to choose what they want to learn. They have this feeling of competence once they come up with a solution that actually works. And they have a feeling of community because usually you don't work on your own, but you're part of a bigger team, a bigger group, a community. And that's the 3 pillars of self-determination theory that helps people actually be happy with themselves and with their lives. So that's one of the key elements. That's why project-based learning is one of the key elements that we have in our learning concept. And I would just invite you to, whenever you are in a situation where you think about how can I help other people learn something, how can I pass on my knowledge, my experience about something, to also think about how the learning experience you're designing is going to impact the mindset of the people that you're trying to teach and that you're trying to pass knowledge on. Because in the end, I think we all want our students, no matter how old they are, where they're from, to have this confidence in their own abilities to, how Steve Jobs put it, to put a dent in the universe. Because eventually, the people, as you know, who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And that's the mindset I think everyone should have.
Thank you so much. So I would like to invite the panelists to the stage.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Which subjects are being taught in your universities?
We have everything around digital product development. So we have software engineering, interaction design, and product management. But we also have a program called Science, Technology, and Society, run by two philosophers, where it's mostly about humanities and how to make sense of the world, basically. And because we want our students to, of course, have the confidence that they can change the world, but as one of our philosophers puts it, you should try to understand the world first before you try to change it. So that's mainly their job. Yeah.
And what are the universities called?
Sorry?
Which
It's called Code University.
code? Like
Code, yes.
CO.
CODE, yes.
Okay.
This is basically the goal. It's not on there, right? So the three letters is CDE, and we later realized that it's actually an abbreviation for curiosity-driven education.